Okay, we have another chapter with a song in it. So just like before, I'm going to read the lyrics sort of like a poem, and then in the description box I will drop some links to this song played on bagpipes, played on a banjo with a fiddle, so that you can hear the melody and what a fun song it is. And also, if you listen closely to the lyrics, it's actually hilarious. So with that, let's get into chapter 15, Fol de Rol-lol. On Saturday afternoon, Mrs. Woodlawn looked out of the window and cried, "Great sakes! Whatever has happened? Don't tell me there's another massacre scare." Clara ran to the window and looked out too. A whole procession of children was straggling up the road and into the farmyard. Clara began to laugh. "Oh, Mother," she said, "it's only the Scalp Belt. Caddie and Tom are exhibiting it this afternoon." Indeed, Tom and Caddie were busy at that very moment taking admissions at the barn door. Inside the barn, Warren and Hetty were seating the guests on barrels and boxes or old wagon seats and trying to maintain order. Little Minnie stood at one side with her finger in her mouth, too overwhelmed to speak. It was an important occasion. Fastened up against the harness rack was a box with a calico curtain strung across it. Here was the show, and all eyes fixed themselves upon it. A sign in straggling letters on a piece of board assured the audience that these were the favorite scalps of Bloody Tomahawk. At last, after the audience had begun to shuffle its feet and utter impatient meows, Tom came forward with the fine assurance of an old showman. "Ladies and gents," he said, "you are now about to see one of the 7 wonders of Dunville. I don't know what the other 6 are, but anyway, I guess you'll agree that this is the best of the lot. Curtain, please. Light, please." Hetty and Warren struggled with the complicated strings of the small curtain. Caddie held up a candle stub and one of Mother's precious sulfur matches. There was a scratch, a spurt of blue flame, a strong odor of sulfur, and then the interior of the box was flooded with candlelight. The audience pressed forward to gaze in awe at the 3 tails of black hair, which had once adorned the heads of 3 unfortunate savages. "The one and only," intoned Tom, who was now in his element, "the favorite and best scalp belt of that ferocious chief, Bloody Tomahawk. He scalped Indians. He slew a few thousand buffalo. He burned down white men's houses and barns." "Faith, Tom Woodlawn, and ye'll do the same," cried an indignant voice. "Wurra, wurra, do ye not know better than to light a candle in your father's barn?" Robert Ireton stood in the barn door, his good-natured face as stormy as a thundercloud. Caddie hastened to snuff the candle. "Oh, Robert," she said, "we've done no harm. We're only having a show. Look, I've put out the candle, and the barn's not burned down either. Please, Robert, get your banjo and sing us a song. It will be part of the show." "Please, Robert, do," begged all the children, for Robert's fame as a musician had gone all through the neighborhood. Robert never had to be coaxed to sing. A smile broke through the clouds of disapproval on his face. In a moment he had fetched his banjo and seated himself in their midst. There was another moment of delightful suspense as he tuned the instrument and twanged a few preliminary chords. "Sing Paddy's Leather Breeches," cried Tom, who was glad to give up the center of the stage when the next performer was Robert. "Yes, yes, Paddy's Leather Breeches," shouted the children. "Faith, then, Paddy's Leather Breeches it shall be," said Robert. "But mind, you must all join in the Fol de Rol-lols." We will," shouted the children. Twang, twang, twang went the banjo. "On the road to Clonmel," sang Robert, "at the sign of the bell, Paddy Haggerty kept a nate shanty. He kept nate figs and bread, and a nate lodge and bed, well liked for the country he lived in. Sing Fol de Rol-lol, sing Fol de Rol-lol, sing Fol de Rol-lol de Rollito." A swelling chorus of voices flung the Fol de Rol-lols as high as the rafters. "One night the snow fallen down, he could not get to town, and Paddy was ate out completely." Here something always seemed to be left out. or added on to spoil the meter, but Robert twanged on as gaily as ever, fitting his music to the words as he knew them, with never a care for rhyme or reason. That night as he lay dreaming of fairies and witches, he heard an uproar outside of his door, and he jumped up to strail on his breeches. Sing Fol de Rol-lol, shouted the children. The words were scarce spoke when the door came unbroke, and they gathered round Paddy like leeches, saying, by the big matchel gob, if you don't give us grub, we'll ate ye clean out o' your breeches. Sing Fol de Rol-lol, sing Fol de Rol-lol. Sure they've got to be fed. He slipped up to the bed, which held Judy his own darlin' wife in, and 'twas there they agreed how to give 'em a feed, so he stepped out and brought a big knife in. Sing Fol de Rol-lol, sing Fol de Rol-lol, sing Fol de Rol-lol, de Rol-li-do. They cut up the waist of the breeches the best, and they ripped off the buttons and stitches, cut 'em in strips by the way they was striped, and they boiled up the old leather breeches. Here's a picture, kind of to interrupt the song. So much fun, right? Sing Fol de Rol-lol, rolled the audience. Fol de Rol-lol, Fol de Rol-lol, de Rol-li-do. When it was stewed and on a dish strewed, the boys cried out, Lord be thank it. But 'twas little they knew that 'twas leather be-goo boiled out o' Paddy's old breeches. Sing Fol de Rol-lol, sing Fol de Rol-lol. And as they messed on the stuff, says Andy, 'tis tough. Says Paddy, you're no judge o' mutton. Then Brian McQuirk, on the point of his fork, held up a large ivory button. Sing Fol de Rol-lol, sing Fol de Rol-lol, sing Fol de Rol-lol, de Rol-li-do. They've poisoned the feast. Let's send for a priest. They jumps on their legs and they screeches, and from that very night they'd knock out your daylight if ye'd mention the old leather breeches. Such a joyous howl of Fol de Rol-lols marked the end of the song, as set the horses to jumping and pawing in their stalls, and John's dog to barking like a mad thing. And so ended in music the show which had begun with scalp locks. On counting up the gate receipts, the Woodlawn children discovered that they had a tidy collection of marbles, old birds' nests, butternuts, pins with colored heads, slingshot crotches, and various other objects of interest or art. I guess we did pretty well, said Caddie pleasantly as she divided the spoils. But Tom pocketed his share in silence. Some disturbing thought seemed to have occurred to him. Katie Hyman didn't come to the show, he said. I guess she's about the only one who didn't. What do you expect? Demanded Caddie with a little touch of scorn in her voice. She'd be scared to death of a scalp belt. She hasn't been to school since the massacre scare, volunteered Hetty. I know it, said Tom. Caddie stopped to think. No, she hasn't, she said slowly. She had thought so much about John and the little Hankinsons that Katie had never entered her head. Now a series of vivid pictures flashed across her mind. Katie standing in the barn, her eyes wide with fear, her hands pressed to her breast, saying, Cross my heart. Katie fainting when Caddie returned from her wild ride. Katie pale and silent the next day, starting for home, holding her mother's hand. And last of all, Katie's place on the bench in the corner of the schoolroom, empty. I wonder, said Caddie. Maybe she's sick, said Tom, trying to seem careless about it. Maybe she is, said Caddie. And if she is, I guess it's my fault. We'd better go and see her. They ran to the house for permission. Yes, do go, said Mrs. Woodlawn. I've worried about the poor little thing myself. Here, take her some of these molasses cookies, and see that you get back before dark. Couldn't we take the scalp belt to show her, Caddie? Inquired Tom. I'll let you, said Caddie, but she won't like it. Ah, golly, I bet she would. She's the only one who hasn't seen it. I'd hate to be the only one who hadn't seen it. Wouldn't you? Caddie wrapped up the scalp belt in a piece of brown paper, and away they went. You go up to the door and knock, Caddie, said Tom, when they reached the little log house where Katie and her mother lived. I just came along to keep you company, you know. Caddie went up and knocked, and Mrs. Hyman let them in. Yes, Katie's been very poorly ever since the scare, said her mother. But do come in. I think the sight of you will do her good. Caddie sat up in bed, a little knitted shawl about her shoulders and pillows piled behind her. Her face was so pale, her eyes so blue, her hair so golden, like a little girl in a dream or a fairy tale. On the rough wall beside her was pinned the finest valentine from Dunville's store. Tom looked at it and suddenly lost his voice. I'm sorry you've been poorly, said Caddie, coming up to the bed. Caddie reached out her little thin hand and caught Caddie's sturdy one. Oh, Caddie, she said, I want to see if you are real. You look so real. I'm glad you came. I've had such nightmares since the scare. In them, people are always hunting for you, and I'm the only one who knows that you are away being scalped by the Indians, and I can't tell because I've crossed my heart. Oh, you can't know how awful it is. Here's a picture of them together. That's Caddie. Caddie sat down on the edge of the bed, awkwardly holding the little hand in hers. I shouldn't have made you cross your heart, she said. It was real unkind of me, Caddie, but I didn't mean it that way. You see, just then, I was more scared of the white folks than the Indians. Caddie, honestly, you mustn't be afraid of the Indians. Most of them are just as good and friendly as can be. Let me tell you about John and what he gave me to keep for him before he went away. Tom drew up a chair, and together they told her about John's departure and the Scalp Belt Show, and how Mrs. Hankinson had gone away, and what Caddie had done with her silver dollar. Encouraged by the little shadowy smiles about her lips, they piled on all the lively details they could remember or invent, and before they were through, Caddie was laughing, and there was a little pinkness in each pale cheek. Oh, I should have liked to see them with their bright red handkerchiefs, she said. I almost wish I could have seen the Scalp Belt Show. Well, said Tom, it's here, and he tapped the brown paper parcel which lay on his knee. Here? Echoed Caddie, looking a little startled. Yes, said Tom. Caddie thought you'd be afraid to look at it, but I knew you wouldn't want to be the only one who hadn't seen it. She doesn't want to see it, Tom. It's only a bunch of old Indian scalps, said Caddie, fearing that all their cheerful talk would have been wasted if Caddie were obliged to see the gruesome object. But Caddie sat up straighter in her pillows. There was a kind of resolute bravery about her that no one had ever noticed before. I do want to see it. Very much. Tom unwrapped the brown paper and held up the belt. Isn't that a beauty? He demanded. Caddie gasped. Yes, she said. Yes, it is a beauty. She even touched one of the tails of hair, and when she had, she looked quite proud and pleased. Do wrap it up now, said Caddie, and here are some cookies. Mother sent which you'll find much nicer than scalps. I hope you'll be well soon, and now we must go. Thank you for coming, said Caddie. I think I will be well soon. And indeed she did look better already. As they rose to go, Tom's eye rested again on the rose is red valentine. Caddie looked at it too. Then their eyes met in some embarrassment. Tom, said Caddie, I guessed who sent it. Tom laughed. You did? That was pretty smart of you, Caddie. All the way home, Tom whistled and sang, Fol de Rol-lol, Fol de Rol-lol, Fol de Rol-lol, de Rol-lido.